Meanwhile, President Bola Tinubu has approved a 14-day extension for land title owners who have defaulted in the payment of the ground rent for their properties and have seen their titles revoked by the FCTA administration. President Tinubu also approved the payment of penalties according to the location of the properties within the FCT. The Minister of the FCT, Nyesom Wike, urged owners of properties in the capital who purchase their lands from second-party owners to regularize their documents and pay up their certificates of occupancy within the next 41 days. Now let's bring in Femi Lawson. He's a public affairs analyst. He joins me tonight from, I believe you're joining us from Lagos. Thank you so much for joining us. We can't say this move is politically motivated, can we? The FCTA also sealed off buildings hosting FIRS and NAPTIP offices.
Thank you. I think for me, first and foremost, I think it is irresponsible of any institution, be it a political party, government agency, or privately owned enterprises, to fail in fulfilling their statutory obligation of paying the required taxes into not just the FCT states. Across so many states, we've seen people erecting structures, people build houses without required approval, people don't pay ground rent. In Lagos, a lot of people don't even pay land use charges and the likes. It is a common scenario. But we must also understand that while it is condemnable that people are failing in fulfilling their statutory obligation to the state, to the nation, in terms of taxes and necessary revenue, what happened in Abuja today is beginning to look like an attempt to actually undermine democracy. Not because PDP is involved, but because of private interests that have seen properties, purportedly taken over by the FCTA. I am not a lawyer, but I know there's a law governing the country. The FCT minister is supposed to be a lawyer. The truth is that in the elementary sense of it, I don't think there's any law that empowers the FCT, just like we have seen in those banners you displayed on your screen, giving the FCT the authority to take over possession of people's property without a court of competent jurisdiction giving such order.
Hold on, Femi.
Even when it involves properties, yeah.
What exactly?
Even when it involves properties.
Let me come in here. You said there is no law that empowers the FCTA to take over people's property when they haven't paid their dues in 20, 10, 40 years. They were served 21 days notice to pay up their dues.
Just like I said, it is irresponsible of any organization, individual or party to shortchange the state, the nation, by not paying the required due. But what does it cost the FCTA administration to approach the court, just like EFCC does and every other agencies of government, and secure an order? You cannot, take over people's property by merely pasting posters and, bringing mobile policemen and some non-state actors to take over properties. I am waiting. I don't know if there exists any order of the court that have granted the FCT administration the power to take over those. And that's why I want to commend President Bola Tinubu for immediately coming in to give that 14 days the window for people to pay up.
But what is the difference between 21 days given by the FCTA and now the 2 weeks that the president would give? It is the same thing. The president also, technically, if I were to go by your argument, does not have the jurisdiction over this kind of matter.
The president directive is not even a law. If you are going to confiscate people's property, just like EFCC does, ICPC does, and other agencies, you must go to the court. Only the court have the power to confiscate people's property and hand over to the state. Mr. Wike does not have the power. The FCTA does not have the power to just paste posters and say this property now belongs to the FCT. Under what authority? Under what law? We must be very careful while we are trying to do the right thing by not engaging in wrong things. That is what the FCT administration is doing today.
Femi, I'm not a lawyer, and I'm actually scrambling for facts here. I wish I have a lawyer on the show to help me, take a look at what your claims tonight. I do not, and I think I may have lost you there. So, but if you're still on the line, Femi, all right.
Yeah,
so you're back. I'm scrambling for information here to just try and see. I just know that, when you get a C of O, there is a certain amount of years that you are given to own the land and pay certain ground and rents and what have you. There are dues. And there is obviously, if there are dues and you default, if you break the law, you must face the music, right? So back to your point, I don't understand the point you're trying to make here. These people are owing the government. The government gave them 21 days to pay up. They didn't pay up, and they're getting their properties revoked or sealed off.
No, it doesn't work that way. I am a property owner by the grace of God in Lagos and Abuja. Like I said at the opening, it is very irresponsible for any individual organization to shortchange the government by not paying your required. It's not about CFO. It's about even regular tenement rate, ground rent. In Lagos, we call it land use charge, that you must pay on your property annually. These individuals, organizations, they are irresponsible by not paying those rents. That, nonetheless, does not give the power to a minister or his subordinates to wake up after taking coffee and bread in the morning and claim that this property now belongs to the... If we're going to take...
Oh, wow. Femi, okay. You're back online now.
Only the court. It is only the court that is empowered to confiscate property. Not any minister, not any ministry, not any
Femi,
individual groups.
Femi.
Yeah.
As far as I know,
I'm with you.
The spokesperson for the FCTA mentioned that there was no court injunction or orders that is preventing them from taking over the properties. Does that count? Was there a court order mandating them to take over the properties? Court order, I beg your pardon.
The spokesperson of the FCTA minister is... if there was no court order preventing them from taking over this property, was there a court order empowering them to take over these properties beyond the instruction of Mr. Wike and maybe some of his subordinates?
All right. We're going to have to leave the conversation there. Thankfully, the president has intervened. He's giving them 2 weeks to pay up. So we see what comes up, what becomes of this story.
Very commendable of President Bola Tinubu.
All right, then. Thank you so much, Femi Lawson, public affairs analyst, for joining us tonight.